So I had 2 jobs. I didn't tell the second job about the first job. So here I was, 21 years old, no college debt, like investment portfolio already compounding with 2 Wall Street salaries. And then at 35, I just said, I'm quitting. Ripped the Band-Aid off. I was like, I like money, I like productivity. And you said, just take all this mishmash of things that you care about and turn it into a course.
Hey everyone, I have here in the studio today a longtime friend and fellow creator and entrepreneur who I really look up to in a lot of areas of life to talk about what it means to make big career and even life transitions, especially when you've had a lot of success and a lot of financial success. So I'm happy to welcome into the studio, Khe Hy.
Thank you, Tiago. It's an honor to be here.
You are one of the people who are most practiced, and you've refined and developed your ability to tell your own story to such a degree. I wonder if you could take us through the main chapters of your journey.
Yes. So my name's Khe Hy. I'm the son of Cambodian and French immigrants. I grew up in New York City in the late 70s, born in 1979. I didn't really like growing up. I was super skinny. My parents were cultural outsiders. I was shy. I was awkward. No girls would date me. I was good at 2 things. I was a Magic the Gathering champion, and I was really good at men's gymnastics. So that could give you a little bit of a frame of what my social life.
I thought you were going to say like math or something.
Yeah, I was good at math too. I had this recurring fear when I was a kid that no spouse would love me. I guess I get a little bit of a new beginning when I go to college. I go to college. I went to Yale undergrad. I entered college with a decent amount of money.
Why?
Because I was very entrepreneurial, and I had taught myself HTML in high school using books. Like, this is 2888 modem time.
Dang.
Reading books like the Wiley series, I think, or O'Reilly. And I would go to my parents' friends. I'm like, you need a website. You need, like, Oprah, you need a website. And I would make these websites. And I had probably earned 15 grand. I was making $15 an hour cash in 1997, which is probably like 40 today.
Yeah.
So I had saved up 15 grand. I sold my collection of Magic the Gathering cards on Usenet Newsgroup for $5,000. By the way, that collection is worth $1 million now.
No.
Yeah. So I thought I was the genius who sold it for five. I had five of the cards that are out of print, like super out of print.
Oh my gosh.
Black Lotus for the nerds listening. And so I sold those. But here's the crazier part. I took all that money and I invested in the S&P 500.
In 1990.
In 1995, 96.
Oh
I still haven't sold it.
Not any of it.
Not any of it.
That is wild.
So like 16-year-old Khe gifted 45-year-old Khe like 100 grand.
Unbelievable.
And it's still there, like growing.
Did you have to pay your own way through college, or did your parents help you, or what?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a key part of the story, is that my dad's employer, the UN, paid for 80% of my college.
No way.
Education.
That's
UN has phenomenal benefits.
It's an incredible benefit.
They pay for 80% of your kids' school, and they have this thing called home leave, where they pay for your family to go back to your home country, flights and hotel, I think, every 2 years.
What?
And yeah, I think I graduated and I had no idea what I was going to do. So I graduated in 2001. Mm-hmm. My 2 majors in college were primary computer science, minor in economics.
Based on their money-making potential? Yeah. Economics and computer science, okay.
And I was a terrible computer science. Computer science is so hard. And my brain, I was like, I know how to make HTML. I'll be a great computer scientist. No, that's not how it works. And so as recruiting is happening, I actually can't get a job. So back then, this will date everything, but like Sun Microsystems, Oracle, Microsoft, like those were the companies that you wanted to work at and I could get a first round interview. Mm-hmm. I couldn't pass the first round interview. They're like, you have, 17 7-digit numbers, like tell me how to create a sorting algorithm, like you like code on paper on the fly. I was so bad at that. thankfully, investment banking comes in. So the big banks from New York City, and they say, we don't care what you like, philosophy, computer science, art history, economics, we don't care. You're going to learn what you need to do on the job. Just be smart. And they descend on the college campuses, especially these like elite schools. And again, this is before Facebook and Google, like, they were the hottest game in town.
Those tech companies sort of pulled a lot of talent from finance, right?
Because they could compete financially. And on top of that, they actually offered a better quality of life that there wasn't. It was banking, consulting, law, medicine. I get offered this job doing investment banking during the .com boom, because it's a year before that you get the job offer. And I go show up to the job and the market had crashed. So they said, they're like, guys, we overhired. And there was so taboo. It might have changed today to lay people off before they even started working for you. It would ruin your reputation with these banks, campuses, college campuses. And so they said, you know what, we'll basically offer you a deal. And they're like, we're going to put you in a different office if you stay. If not, we'll pay you your base salary, which I think was $55,000, and just come back in a year, and we'll just have a smaller recruiting class for the following year. To give you a sense of what investment banking is like, they offered that to 12 people. 10 people said no.
Really? Why?
It would be like postponing graduation by a year. Like you were excited to start the clock on this trajectory. It's like 1 year later to become partner. Like, why would I do that for 55 grand, So I took the money, but I wish, this is what drives me crazy. So I had healthcare. I was 21 years old. I was single. And I had this 55 grand, and I was like, I should have just traveled the world back, whatever. I moved to California. I was kind of quasi dating someone. I followed her for the summer. She went back to school, and I was like, what do I do now? So I got another job. So I had two jobs. I didn't tell the second job about the first job. I just plan on quitting at the end of the year and just going back to honor my commitment at the second job. So here I was, 21 years old, no college debt, like investment portfolio already compounding from high school investments, with two salaries, two Wall Street salaries. I made $125,000 in 2001 prices.
Unbelievable.
And so I think that was just the intensity, I didn't even know what the prize was, just like make as much money as possible. But the intensity and the resolute focus on that goal, I laugh at that. I'm just like, I'm almost like want to grab his cheeks. Like, you're so cute. Like, you went out and got another job. And I'm proud of it. I'm like, good. I'm glad that 22-year-old worked so hard, because now I get to chill.
Yeah, it's true.
I do investment banking for 2 years, and that's a grind of a career. That's the classic 100-hour work week, sleep under your desk, weekend warrior. You leave the office at 11 o'clock on a Friday, you get blackout drunk, and you come back into the office at 10 the next day. It was a different time. I shifted to this other part of financial services, which was less hours. It's funny because it was 60 hours a week. So that was and that was an easy job because your hours are fixed, very little weekends, not a ton of travel. So that was in a good part. It was called fund of hedge funds. And I had a rocket ship career. A lot of the threads, they were just there, starting with, just my intense work ethic, that I was just like, I will outwork anyone, especially at that point in my life. And then at 35, so I did that for Wall Street for 14 years. I had, probably, 2 years. We have a decently high cost of living. We like to live in nice places and travel nicely. Probably had 2 years of money that I was very comfortable just spending to figure it out. So at 35, with a 18-month-old and a wife who's an artist, I just said, F it, I'm quitting. And so ripped the Band-Aid off.
I remember. And how old were you?
I was 35.
So right at the peak, or what would have been the most kind of intense period of your career.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm out.
So what year was this
This was 2015, and I was 35.
Okay.
9 years ago.
So do you divide those 9 years into different chapters? Were there different phases, certain milestones?
I think the first chapter was just flailing. And that was pretty long because I had financial runway. There wasn't a pressure to turn on the monetization engine. And I think that was really cool because it really allowed me to like shape my voice and do a bunch of different things. But that was kind of, I would say, up until 2018. So the first 3 years was this kind of creative flailing, and I was doing some coaching during that period. Then a big turning point. I was like, I like money, I like productivity, I like this. And you said, just take all this mishmash of things that you care about and turn it into a course.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that was your advice. So this was July of 18.
Okay.
3 years after I quit. And then I hired Taylor to help me market it. And Taylor said something that I will never forget to this day. He said, just so you know, for every course launch that we do, we have like an 85-page Google Doc of marketing assets.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, holy fuck. That I probably should have ran when he said that. And so from that period until I would say the punched in the face period, but that was really, and we can dive into that period. That was like the COVID period. I learned a lot of it attributed to you and the people you introduced into my world, like Billy and others. I really learned how to market. And so now I had an audience, I knew how to sell, and I had some pockets of expertise. And then we had COVID.
You're putting the pieces together and connecting.
Yeah. And I think that they were kind of happening over that flailing period. But then it was like the Voltron just kind of like whoosh. And so we had built this machine up. We had 5 full-time employees. The course was doing, rocket ship during COVID, starting to flatten out when people started to go back to the office. And then January of 2023 hits and it just crashes. Like January is usually our biggest month. I think we were down 85% in sales, and I literally couldn't make payroll. Holy moly.
A big theme in your work has been identity shifts. I think you've even done coaching around this, right? Or do coaching around this. How does that work? Like, this is something I've always wondered. You're faced with a client or just someone you're talking to. It becomes clear, or I guess, how does it become clear they're going through an identity shift? Are there certain symptoms, certain signs you look for? And then how do you help them through that? Can you help them? Like, how does that work?
So usually it's more of a violent shift. And so let's say, for example, like I used to be a managing director at BlackRock. When we moved to Manhattan Beach and Lisa would go to like the new parents, like kindergarten meeting, they'd be like, what does your husband do? And she would come back and she's like, they keep asking me, what do you do? And I don't know what to tell them. And I was like, well, tell them what I say. And they're like, well, what do you say? I was like, I say I'm fun employed, because I would deflect the question with humor. And she said, I'm not telling a group of new moms in Manhattan Beach that you're fun employed. Like, that's the stupidest answer I've ever heard,
Oh, interesting. Because yeah, in that situation, there's something at stake for her.
Yeah.
She wants to be seen a certain way. She wants to make friends that are in her kind of circles.
Or even not a certain way for sure, but even like in a known way.
Yeah. To even be coherent.
Yeah. It's just like coherence, not even about like, oh, he's high status, medium, whatever. It's just coherence, right? My mom, she's like, what do I tell your aunts that you're doing now? And I'm like, who cares? Just tell them whatever. I'm like, no, like, so I think that the identity shift often happens when there is this kind of big moment, like I was X, right? And you see this, where do you see this? You see this with people who take big, bold moves against known trajectories, right? And they get kind of thrust into the unknown, right? Because remember, like if I tell a Wall Street person I'm a creator, they're like, maybe until like TikTok, like they didn't even know what that, they're like, you mean like Mr. Beast?
Like an influencer?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, society actually keeps these like like coat hangers of identity, and they kind of like, and there's all these kind of things that are associated with like if you say like, oh, he's a surfer, they'll be like, the first thing that comes to mind is like, he's probably not that smart. Right? He probably smokes pot.
He's probably unemployed.
Yeah, he's probably unemployed. He probably doesn't read, right? Like a lot of these things come out. Oh, he's a managing director at Wall Street. Oh, he must know a lot about history, or like he must be rich, like. And we actually like take these containers, and when you go into any new room or even an old room, they kind of there's this like a kind of unspoken communication. Like, I respect you. I want to be like you, or you have something to offer me. I have something to offer you. You take that away and you like going to this fancy party butt ass naked, right? Like I'm telling you, the question that almost got me to re-enter Wall Street was I was so sick of people asking me, what are you doing now?
Really? Oh, that now adds a little poke
It's
to
like
it.
a zinger, right? Because in that question, first of all, I hear all of my insecurities. Like, oh, you're not going to make it. You're not good enough. You made a bad decision. But I want them to see me a certain way too, right? I want you to be like, no, like when they would say that, like, just so you know, I didn't get fired. I'm really smart. I have my shit together. It's like, you can't say that if you're in between jobs.
Yeah. You have to fit into some known, because if it's not a known category, it literally just makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's like gibberish.
Especially, here's where it gets tricky, is like when you make the move like I did, it's very triggering to people. It's extremely triggering, because basically what I said is like, you care about this game of money, and either I like want it or I don't care. Regardless, it's like you're chasing something that I had and I don't even want it.
Dang. So they would attack you or get angry?
Very like someone once said, I heard this behind my back. They were like, I know what's going to happen. His wife's going to divorce him.
Oh my gosh.
That's how. And by the way, this person was like extremely rich, like infinitely wealthier than me.
Pure projection.
And then the other thing it does, especially in these like known fields, people say this all the time to me. They're like, you're so courageous to have done that. And I take it in, but I don't see it as, I almost didn't have a choice in my mind. But here's the thing, if they view as what you do to be courageous, and they know that they would never do what you're going to do, what does that imply about them?
Is it a way of like diminishing themselves, basically?
It's like you don't have courage. I mean, like that's like a horrible thing to be reflected to you.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, like Khe reminds me that I don't have the balls to do this.
So how did that show up? Did you lose any relationships? Did people?
Yeah, there was a lot of like, kind of not smack talking, but kind of like, yeah, we all do this where like we like forward each other like different, like, did you see what he just said? Like there was a lot of that. So there was that. There were like people would just outright say, like a group of friends that they were like, should we like stage an intervention? Because I was just pouring my heart and soul out on like my medium.com blog. And they're like, hey, if he wants to, everyone was worried. It's like, what if he wants to go back? He's going to regret saying these. And I wasn't bad mouthing the industry. I was just showing too many emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there were people that were thinking of staging interventions. There are people to this day, they'll say things like, seems like you're having a really good life. I don't really agree with a lot of things you say, And so it's like this kind of like comment with a dig in it. Like I still get those.
Interesting. 9 years in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. And I mean, you had asked earlier, I didn't directly answer the question. Like a lot of the coaching is like the number one question. It's like, I want to quit, but my spouse isn't on board. Really?
That's the number one question. Have they like really talked to their spouse and laid it out?
I mean, you're like at the heart of the issue is like, have you really talked to your spouse? Like has your soul talked to you? Because like me, and that's why I feel so blessed. Like Lisa and I, you and Lauren, like our souls are really simpatico and like they really get each other. It doesn't mean that they always agree, but they kind of understand the perspective. I think that, we talked about this journey of going inward. It's like, if you have two people that don't go inward, the souls ain't talking.
Yeah.
And uprooting your family from the known thing, from the known X, from all the things, the questions that millions of people are going to ask you, those are decisions that need to be done on a soul level. They're not done with just spreadsheets and planning.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same for career change. There's like a different level of consciousness that's tackling these problems, and it's not meant to be woo woo, but I think there is, you do leave some realm of the hyper rational, right? And you kind of have to get into some of the core wounding, some of the insecurities, some of the dreams, right? Like a lot of people don't know what they're disconnected from their dreams.
Yes, or just even what they want.
Yeah.
Like even in the present, what do you just want right now? What's some of the other reasons they say they can't do the thing, whatever it is?
The next thing is the identity earthquake, which is like, I'm just known as this X, and I just can't imagine going through life as not X, right?
Now, what do you think is behind that? Like, what makes the pull of that identity so strong?
Well, usually it's a very high status identity in that world, and so it's the part. It's your social life. It's your kids' friends. It's the school your kids go to. It's the boards that it's a very like, all the people have ski houses in Steamboat or Aspen or so like not only that, but your social circle is like portable in that regard.
They're all linked, all these things.
So that they're all linked. I mean, look, it probably is harder for me to get my kids into an elite private school as an internet creator than it is as a Wall Street managing director, unless there's like a novelty appeal to it. I don't know. We're not going down that route, but that would be one like real world consequence where like if you're applying to a country club and you put like YouTuber or law firm partner, probably somewhere there's someone else scratching their head.
Yeah.
And so then if you can't get into the country club, then your kids can't swim together in the summer. And so if your kids can't swim together in the summer, then they have to go hang out with other sets of friends and so like there's this whole kind of downstream, and that's the thing, like I did this deep dive onto status once, and like I wanted to be like, status is bad. But the thing is, even if you say status is bad, then you're going to go hang out with like all the anarchists, right? Yeah. And so unless you sit in a cave by yourself without electricity, and even then you're probably making some kind of status statement by rejecting. Like status actually does inform how we interact. Yeah. Now you can choose. I love Kevin Dahlstrom from Twitter, Camp4. He has this thing. He's like his thing is go into places where your status doesn't matter, and then basically either acquire new status or see the irrelevance of your old status. And so for him, and this is why people like extreme sports, surfing, and like literally no one in the water cares that I worked on Wall Street. Zero given.
Yeah.
Climbing a mountain, zero. Playing golf, different story.
Yeah. Interesting. It's
right?
just in the moment, the moment to moment experience that matters in those.
And I think that's the thing. A lot of the status is constant. With the internet, it's a little bit different now, but a lot of these, it's like concentrated in big cities. So like everyone in your building is like of that status, and then your kids' friends are of that status, and it kind of, and again, as a human being, the thing we fear most, like Khe as a young kid, is being an outsider. Yeah. Right. So if the removal of your status really gives you the chance of becoming an outsider to the core group, it's a terrifying thing. Some of it is justifiable, and that's why you do need to have a bit of a given. It was like, oh, like you don't want me in your country club. Like, fuck it, I don't want to be in your country club. That's why I got this tattoo on my arm, because for a while having visible tattoos on Wall Street was like, we won't hire you. And I think that's changed now with so many people having sleeves. But I got this as a reminder to myself: if someone's gonna not hire me because I have a visible tattoo, then fuck it, I don't want to work there.
Interesting. I love that.
And so there's like a part of you that kind of has to thumb your nose, and sometimes like. The other thing about it is that sometimes people are really attracted to that, right? Some people are like, oh, you went too far. arm tattoo guy. And other people are like, how cool. He said he had the confidence to be like, this entire industry could not hire me because of this permanent ink that I'm going to put on my arm.
So it's very polarized.
Yeah, it's very polarizing. And then maybe in reality, it's somewhere in the middle, right? I'm sure that there are places that still won't hire anyone that can even show a sleeve tattoo. Yeah. And I'm sure there are others where the founder has a sleeve tattoo. Yeah. So absolutely. At the end of the day, it's kind of in the middle. Wow. I'll give you the third reason that people are scared of pivots. I think you said it, but they don't know. I asked them what makes you come alive, and they have no clue. They don't know what lights them up. It's actually probably one of the harder ones to.
What are some of the things you offer, say a coaching client who's going through, whether they mention one of those three things or something else, like, do you have tools or techniques or frameworks? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, I would say there's light frameworks. I think the funny thing is I always tell my clients, like, there's nothing that you haven't read in a blog post that I've written. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, I mean, I don't even know who came up with this, but we've all used some version of the ideal ordinary day, the ideal ordinary week, where you just like map out, like, if you didn't have to work for money, what do you do? And so people will say things like, oh, like, I would take a guitar lesson. So then I'm like, you're taking a guitar lesson. Like, and there's all these stories like, well, my son's on traveling team and I don't have time. Like, come on. So I think a lot of it is this might downplay it. Like, it's the fact that they make an investment. So you could read all the blog posts about getting a hobby, but until you like paid someone a large sum of money and they're like, show me the hobby next week, then they're gonna come back with the hobby. So that's one thing. I think the second thing is feeling seen. And, like, the number one thing I read your blog post and like, it's like you're in my head. And as a writer, that's the greatest compliment, right? And so to be seen and to be understood at this like emotional level, I think it gives them the trust that someone can see them for who they are and can understand their struggle. A lot of, very simple, like, I'll ask them things, so this one is usually one of the more provocative ones where I ask them, what percentage of your time is spent on things that have no outcomes? Right. And they go back, wow, like, I have to listen to a podcast with a lesson in it. Like, I don't so much like I don't allow myself to have leisure. And so that, and it's almost like a perspective shift that's like, wow, what would my life look like if I allowed leisure? It's like they didn't know that they had a visceral reaction to leisure. And it doesn't mean to go, YOLO life and go crazy, but it's like, wow, like let's pull on that, right? And then you kind of get into a mix of like frameworks, a mix of spirituality, a mix of just like, it's very Socratic though, where it's just kind of like, well, what would happen if you had way more leisure? It's like, there'd be a lot of guilt. There'd be a lot of shame. That's usually the case with leisure. A lot of guilt, a lot of shame.
It's a confronting idea because in theory, you're doing all this work and sacrifice to have leisure. Why don't you just enjoy the thing that you're working hard? No. And then you realize you can't.
Yeah.
You don't have the ability to.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been an incredible conversation. I've learned so much about you, even though I've known you for years. But thank you for being here so much. And where can people follow you online if they want to hear more?
People could find me at radreads.co. Sign up for the newsletter. That's kind of the main hub for things. Twitter is my main social media, and the Examine Life podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast.